going on, golf fans? It's your boy Gsluke here with our DFS and betting preview for this week's Baycurrent Classic. We got ourselves a new event, a new golf course as well to go ahead and break down. And here, this preview is going to get you ready for all of your exposure. But first off, a quick look at the golf course, my modeling, and what I'm looking for in my top plays this week. And then afterwards, we're going to cycle into my DFS and betting exposure and a few plays that I'll be well over the field on at DFS, and a few bets that I'm also considering adding as well. So by the end, you have a game plan of what to look for in your players, and also a few examples of that in action. So let's go ahead, hop on into it, and not waste any time at all. But first off, look at the golf course. I've got a full course breakdown already up on my channel, and I'll go ahead and link that in the description of this video. But in my opinion, Yokohama Country Club is more positional than it is about distance. You've got a really tight corridors off the tee, and while the fairways are relatively wide, about 35 yards wide on average, they have cut them down and made them a little bit narrower for this event. And also, when you miss the fairways at this golf course, it's oftentimes a lost ball. You've got heavily wooded areas, a lot of shrubs, a lot of places where you'd be lucky to even find your golf ball, let alone even play it. So I think when you see guys miss offline, it's going to lead to double, triples, even snowmans in a few cases. So I think over 72 holes, some of your more accurate players are going to start to funnel towards the top. But for 18-hole sample size, just one of the 4 rounds, you could get away with it conceivably if you're one of those longer tier players. But by the time we get to Sunday, I think that that's going to be a big factor there. So again, link in the description if you want to check out the full course breakdown. But here are some of the key stats that I'm using this week. So number 1 would be shots gained approach, which is almost always going to be our number 1 key stat. I'm really looking at the last 12 and 24 rounds, as we're not 100% sure on the kind of approach distribution that we're going to get this week. But for me, it's a lot of emphasis with the mid irons, whether it's the 175 to 200 that's getting closer to the long irons, but not an overly long approach, 150 to 175, or this 125 to 150. That's where I'm adding some extra emphasis. So I'd say the form, always really good to look at when you're heading into a PGA Tour event. But at least for this event and the first time that we're seeing this course, I'm being a little bit more broad with our buckets. Off the tee, I think it's more about accuracy than it's about power. It is 7,300 yards, so it's not a completely pushover when it comes to the distance. And it's also going to be a little bit wet with some expected rain that they're getting Thursday. Also some winds close to 30 miles an hour. So I would say that there's a chance that they don't play on Thursday, that it's at least delayed somewhat there. And round 1 heads into Friday. But driving accuracy for the other few rounds is for sure going to be what you want. I'd say on Thursday with the wet course, maybe power could be a little bit more of a factor. But if you're hitting the ball into those spots where you have to take a drop, an unplayable, or perhaps even re-tee, that's going to add up over 72 holes. So that's my personal take on the course. I've heard a few other people say that they think that power might be the more important aspect. The truth is, we don't really know ahead of time. It's, us speculating on the golf course, taking a look at its setup and what we think it's going to emphasize. But based on my experience in breaking down golf courses, playing competitive golf myself, I think it's going to be an accuracy week. Next up, we got putting. We've got form and bent grass putting mixed into the modeling. They are bent grass greens, so if you're going to try and narrow down your research, that would be the type of surface to utilize. Around the green, I'm looking at both form and some scrambling stats over the last 24 rounds. It does look like a pretty tricky around the green course, and you could even throw some sand shots in there as well, as there are quite a few that are protecting the around the greens. And then also, if we're looking for a comp course, I've got the home of the Zozo Championship, which just this event is actually replacing on the PGA Tour schedule. It was a difficult course, narrow driving corridors. I think going to play to a similar level of difficulty of what we have this week. And though the agronomy isn't 1-to-1 from golf course to golf course, it is very similar from track to track. So I'd say that that's a decent comp course to use. And outside of that, probably not that many here stateside that are similar. So that's what I'm looking for, my players. More of a keep it and play off the tee attack with your second shot. And then the short game, while it's not the most important categories that I'm utilizing this week, you can't overlook it. You've got some tricky green complexes, some tricky around the green shots as well that are going to penalize you when you're missing greens. So I think you need to be an all-around player, but especially with that driving accuracy, I think that, your Wyndham Clarks, your guys that are just spraying it 30 to 40 yards offline are going to have a really tough time around this kind of a track. So with that being said, what does our top pieces of exposure look like this week? And we're going to start off with the Siwoo Kim as our first core play at $9,600. And there are going to be players more expensive than him that I'm for sure using in lineups, like Xander Schauffele, Hideki, Colin Morikawa. I'll probably play at least one, maybe even 2 of those top 3 3 players. But when I'm looking for value, especially when it comes to this price tag, Siwoo Kim's really the first player that stands out, and his form isn't going to be elite compared to an Alex Noren, who is number 1 in the field over the last 12 measured rounds. He's gaining just under 3 strokes per round, so it's going to be pretty tough to beat that. But Siwoo Kim's playing some pretty solid golf, gaining 1.23 shots gained per round over that last 12 round sample size. And if we take a look at how he's putting it together over that 12 round sample size, it's with ball striking, and it's ball striking pretty much only. He's gaining about 0.58 strokes per round off the tee, 1.03 shots gained approach per round, and really the only negative over that 12 round sample size would be the putter, where he's losing 0.8 strokes per round. So just needs to get hot with that. Tee to green play has been some of, if not the best of anyone in this range. And if we go to the last 24 round sample size, it holds up. He's gaining 0.48 shots gained per round off the tee, so not as elite of his last 12 round sample size, but still up there. And then 0.76 shots gained per round on approach, and it's the same problem, right? It's the putter losing 0.87 shots gained per round. And Siwoo Kim, though he's not an elite putter on this bent grass surface, he's at least better than that 24 round sample size, because that 0.43 shots that he's losing on bent grass for his career is 0.44 shots better than that 24 round sample size. So, he's in theory about 2 shots better over an entire event if he makes the cut. Considering that's a no cut event, he's going to get all of those 4 rounds. And even if he's just a neutral with the flat stick over the 4 days, that's probably a top 10, a top 15 for Siwoo Kim with how well he's been playing with his tee to green play. But the upside's always there for him to gain as well. He's the kind of guy that sporadically will gain those 3 to 4 strokes to the field, and it's not like he does that consistently. That's not what you're going to get out of Siwoo. He's a fiery character, and he's an extremely volatile golfer. When you take a look at his results, he's cleaned it up a bit over the last couple years. He has started to raise that floor and make more cuts on the PGA Tour, but when you want Siwoo Kim, and when he really pays off in large field GPPs, or from the outright betting perspective, is when you go out there and you gain 3 to 4 strokes putting. So that's what you're hoping for with the Siwoo Kim play. And it's because you've got an Alex Noren around him, a Kurt Kitayama who won, just recently on tour. A few other guys like Michael Kim, he's coming off a win on the DP World Tour. Because you got some of these form guys around him, I think that you're going to see him be averaged, maybe even below average ownership, which I think is a bit of a mistake, because when we consider the course fit, not only is ball striking important around here, but we need driving accuracy, and he is a top 30 driving accuracy player in all the PGA Tour. Not only hits the ball long, but also hits the ball straight. He's got the iron profile that we're hoping for as well. The mid irons are really where Siwoo Kim tends to excel. Long irons is average. Also with the really short wedges, he can be average to above average on tour. But the 125 to 175 yard range, which is really what I'm emphasizing in my modeling, he's top 25 in almost every single bucket there. So $9,600, somebody that I think really sets up well for Yokohama Country Club. And because the ownership's going to be at the average to below average mark, it gives him a lot of opportunity in those large field GPPs. You can use him, get some differentiation towards the top end of the board, and there's going to be some chalkier options that I plan on using in my lineups, like perhaps that Xander, the Hideki, or that Colin Morikawa play that I'm making towards the top. But to offset some ownership and to perhaps use somebody in the 7K range that's a little bit more popular, you're going to have to offset that somewhere else in your lineup. And I think a good way to do so would be with somebody that makes sense for this course, like a Siwoo Kim, and that you're not taking too much of a shot on the dark on. Next up, we got ourselves a Christian Bezuidenhout, who I could not bet outright. I was able to get Siwoo Kim, by the way, at 22 to 1 to win this golf tournament. That was at 20 to 1, boosted 10% to that 22 number. Christian Bezuidenhout, though, is at a terrible number on Hard Rock Bet. In fact, he's at 30 to 1. I just won't bet that myself. In fact, he's closer to 40 to even 45 to 1 in other spots. If you can get that 40 to 1 or that 45 to 1 number, I would 100% bet him at this sort of event. But as is, he's not going to be added to my portfolio right now. He's more of a DFS play for me, but somebody that I think is going to be in contention for sure, because just like a Siwoo Kim, he's got that driving accuracy that we're hoping for. Top 30, I believe top 35 on the PGA Tour when it comes to that driving accuracy. And he's been playing some sneaky good golf recently, and it's been in some decent events, some DP World Tour stuff, some playoff events towards the end of the year, finishing top 25. Not a lot of top 5 finishes that are really going to start to get the eyeballs and the attention, but he's been solid, just, gaining a stroke to a stroke and a half per round over the last 24 rounds. And if I show you how he's doing it, it's been rather impressive as well. Over that 24 round sample size, only losing with one of the 4 categories. That would be off the tee, which we'll talk about here in a second. And then over the last 12 round sample size, it's a lot of the same, gaining in the 3 categories from fairway and in, and then losing a little bit off the tee. And like I had kind of mentioned right off the bat, he's more of an accuracy guy than anything, a top 35 player when it comes to driving accuracy. And if I'm right about the course lean this weekend, I'm sticking to my guns, right? When I first went through the golf course and, I watched people playing it, I saw how tight it was and the opportunity for all the lost balls and the big numbers around this golf course. I told myself I want guys that aren't going to be hitting it into that kind of stuff. That's what Bazane does. Even though he's losing strokes over the last 12 and last 24 rounds, it's not because of that accuracy. It's because he's not the longest player on tour. And wow, after the Thursday rain, I'm a little bit worried about the golf course playing slightly longer. It's only 7,300 yards. If it plays like 74, 7,500 yards, it's really not the end of the world for somebody like a Seabez. So I'm going to use him at $8,400 in a lot of my DFS lineups. And I do think he'll get some ownership, but he's not going to be the chalk of this range. You don't really have anyone in the 8K range other than a Gary Woodland that I think is going to stand out from the ownership angle. I could see a Gary Woodland being in that 15 to 20% range. I'm more so thinking that these Seabez is the more averagely owned guys, like an Adam Scott maybe, are going to be in that like 12% range when it comes to that projected ownership. So if that's the case, I'm going to be well over the field on a Seabez, probably in that 30 to maybe even 35% range. And if he happens to drift to 40 to 1 on Hard Rock Bet, where I have access for betting these guys outright, then I'll add in that Seabez outright as well, because I think he's got, at least at this style of golf course, especially when conditions look tough for Thursday and Friday, I think it gives him an even better chance to get to the winner's circle, because he's a grinder. He's somebody that has the all-around game. We kind of mentioned that when we're going through the course modeling. It's about accuracy, and then you kind of need everything, because this golf course looks pretty tough. It looks like it's going to challenge you across the board. I think all of that really favors a Seabez in this case, and you could say the same thing about a Siwoo. We know that his clear weakness is with the putter, but everything else, he's out there gaining into the positive. These are the style of players that I'm hoping to play this week, and in particular, looking to add to the betting card as well. Before we go through our two value plays towards the bottom end of the board, do want to remind you where you can find these spreadsheets for yourself, and that would be on my Patreon page. The Golf DFS tier is how you get access to these, both for main slate like you're seeing now and for showdown for rounds 2 through 4. You can download these with my entire player pool, every single projection and every single player modeled out for all these golf tournaments, and for the showdown over the weekend as well. So check it out if you guys haven't already. It's got recent form on there, all the finishes from the PGA Tour. We got event history as well, which is from the Zozo. It's a different name now with the Baycurrent Classic, but you have all the Zozo stuff in there from Narashino Country Club, which by the way is the comp course, so it's really good to have the information this week. You got the last 24, the last 12 measured rounds for all of these players, and of course all the modeling with the model weights included towards the right over here as well. And that's so you can reproduce the model for yourself, also adjust it, fine tune it, get it exactly where you want for any given week, and use that for all of your analysis. So check it out, link in the description of the video to go out there and join the Patreon page and help support the channel as well. So go ahead and check it out if you guys haven't already. But our two value plays, and we're going to start with number one here with Matthew McCarty, are solid outright stretches as well. And I didn't bet Matthew McCarty quite yet for the outright, but two guys on a DFS are less than the average price. So they're going to save you a bit of salary in both cases. It should be relatively low owned. So let's start out here with Matthew McCarty. Matt McCarty is somebody that you guys know I have a soft spot for. He's one of the players that I think has a lot more talent than his peers. I could see him being a top 25 player on tour someday. And at these golf courses where you don't have to be a bomber, where accuracy is preferred, I think he's got a chance to legitimately win. So at $7,600, that's a lot of the upside there. He's a top 40 accuracy player on the PGA Tour. So not as elite as some of the other players on this list, but still well above average when it comes to hitting fairways. So if he can avoid the trouble, lean into some hot irons, some hot putting, that's kind of been his strength on the PGA Tour ever since he got out here, he's got a chance to get into the mix and potentially even win this thing. So the first bet that I placed was the top 10 at plus 550. I thought that number was just too good a value to pass up. But when we take a look at the last 24 and last 12 measured rounds, he's got that all-around skill set that I'm hoping for. He's gaining across all 4 stat categories over the last 24 rounds. His quote-unquote weakest category is off the tee, where he's only gaining 0.07 shots gained per round, but he's a more accuracy first-led player, which I'm okay with on a week like this. And if you go to the last 12 measured rounds, and we show you that as well, you can see he's gaining over the 4 stat categories as well. So just a very consistent player. I think that as he gets more and more polished in his PGA Tour career, if he gains across all 4 categories and then gets them all closer to a third or a half a stroke per round, It's one of the best players in the world. So he's not that far off of that right now, by the way. Like, he's playing that good of golf, and it's not in like weak field events. McCarty, because of how consistent and how good in that win that he had last year, was playing in some playoff events, playing in some signature events towards the end of the year, and was still, over the last 24 round sample size, which includes a lot of those, gaining across all 4 stat categories. So that's why I'm so bullish on this kid. He hasn't even played that much here during the fall, which is okay. I don't think he needs to with the kind of standing that he has out there. But I think next year, when you start to see him play in these weaker field events, I think he's going to win once, maybe even twice next year in one of these weaker field events, and it could even be this week over there in Japan. So $7,600 will certainly be in my exposure, but the top 10 bet in DFS, I think he's an even better play than that because he doesn't have to win to pay off. A top 10, a top 12 finish is likely enough, and that is well within his range of outcomes. He's a very consistent player. He really fits this style of golf that we're hoping for, and just like a Siwoo, and it's worth noting with Seabez, these guys are all good with their middle irons, from 125 to 175. All of them are plus players compared to the rest of the field, which is another thing that they have going for them. And then the last player that we've got here is my favorite this week, and it's you can tell I like my diamonds in the rough. It was Thurston Lawrence last time out. Obviously didn't win for us, but he had a damn good week. He made a lot of birdies, was more than usable in DFS. I've got similar vibes here with an Austin Eckroat, and Eckroat is 60 to 1. I boosted him to 66 to 1 to win this thing. He's an extremely accurate player, top 30 player on tour when it comes to driving accuracy, and just like some of these other players, is going under the radar. He's number 8 in my Yokohama Country Club course fit. He's number 19 in the recent form ranking, so he's not like popping the slate or anything, but he's still top 20 in that category over that last 12 rounds. But let's start with the last 24 rounds first, and then we'll show you the last 12 rounds after. Last 24 rounds. So this is a large sample size. He's only losing around the green, and this is a course where I think around the green it is a little dicey. I don't think that that's something you can just afford to be losing a whole bunch of strokes on, but he's had weeks where he's gained to the field, most notably when he's had his pot performances. He's been at least half decent there, especially when he won down at the Honda Classic. And if we go to the last 12 measured rounds, he's been doing a lot of the same, gaining in the 2 ball striking categories. Again, long and accurate off the tee. If it is going to play longer because of the rain, I think that's even better for a guy like an Eckroat. And the 2 short game categories, they're never going to be great for Austin Eckroat, but on the surface bent grass, he's just a little bit better than his normal. You can see, you'd be like, oh, better than normal. What do you mean? He loses on like regular Bermuda grass. He loses on POA like a half a stroke to 0.75 strokes per round. So believe it or not, this 0.2 strokes that he's losing to the field right there are better than some of the other surfaces that he has on tour. So, I mean, it's not the main reason we're playing. It's more so that ball striking form. And something else I'm going to add out there is for Thursday, this will for sure be a factor, but it could be a factor Saturday, Sunday as well. It depends on the kind of forecast and how it changes over the next couple of days, but it's supposed to be super windy. A low ball flight player like an Austin Eckroat that also has high ball speed that can still hit it pretty far is going to have a huge advantage if it's blowing 30 to 40 miles an hour. Matt McCarty has that low penetrating ball flight. A Seabez doesn't hit the ball very high either. And same thing with Siwoo Kim. We know that he's got that stinger in the bag. That's kind of the cherry on top with all these different plays. And I would say that I don't think any of them are going to be chalk. Like in Austin Eckroat, you're looking at maybe 7 to 10% ownership. A McCarty, same thing, maybe 7 to 10%. And I'm thinking that I'd probably take the under in most cases on that kind of an ownership number. Seabez, average ownership. Siwoo Kim, probably average ownership towards the top end of the board. And if I'm right about my course fit angle here, they should not be averagely owned plays. They should be some of the more popular plays that we have on the slate. And that's the kind of strategy that I'm taking into this week. Alrighty guys, that is all I've got for the DFS and betting preview this week. Go ahead, smash that like button if you guys haven't already. Also go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss any of the content to come. And if you go ahead and comment the winner for this week, and it'll be on a first come first serve basis, you'll also win a free month access to my Patreon projections. On there is where you can get access to all my projections for main slate, my player poll, every single bet that I'm taking as well, and all of that for round 2 through 4 showdown. And to top of that, if you're a player that bets props on the pick'em sites like Underdog and Prize Picks, I have all the Underdog and Prize Picks stuff posted for this event as well. All of that for free if you give me that correct winner. So just go ahead, guess Xander if you want to guess the chalk winner first. Whoever you think will be hoisting the trophy by the end of the week is who you should be commenting down below. But that's all, guys. I appreciate your support here on the channel as per usual. Best of luck with everything that you're entering. Hope to see a lot of your names towards the top end of those GPPs. Hope we can cash out on an outright winner, maybe a few Underdog and Prize Picks bets as well to try and add to the bankroll. And we'll have ourselves a weekend. It's a no-cut event, but it is a relatively strong field towards the top. So I'm thoroughly looking forward to the action and some overnight golf, right? We don't always get to watch some night golf over here in the States, so that'll be a nice welcome change here this time of year, and excited for everything to come. So round 2 through 4 showdown streams, we'll have these here on the channel. Subscribe so you don't miss any of that. But until then, best of luck, and let's have ourselves a week.